Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful stories of provision in the entire Bible. It's a story about a desperate mother, a crushing debt, and a miracle that flowed from a single jar of oil. This is the story of the widow and the prophet Elisha from 2 Kings chapter 4. And trust me, what we uncover here has the power to change how you see your own impossible situations. So, let's set the scene. We meet a woman who is in the deepest kind of trouble. Her husband, who was part of the company of prophets, has died. And he didn't just leave her a widow. He left her with a massive, unpayable debt. In ancient Israel, this wasn't just a financial problem. The law at the time, while designed to protect people, could be harsh. If you couldn't pay your debts, your children could be taken by the creditor and forced into servitude to work it off. Imagine the terror. This woman had already lost her husband. Now she was facing the horror of losing her two sons to slavery. It was a situation with no apparent way out. She was facing a complete and utter nightmare. In her desperation, she does the only thing she can think of. She cries out to the man of God, Elisha. She explains her predicament. Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come to take my two boys as his slaves. Her appeal is raw, it's honest, and it's filled with anguish. She isn't just asking for help, she's reminding Elisha of her husband's faithfulness. It's a cry that says, we followed God, we did what was right. How can this be happening to us? How many of us have felt that way? We try to live right, to honor God, and yet disaster strikes. It's a very real, very human moment. Now, Elisha's response is fascinating. He doesn't immediately say, don't worry, God will provide. He doesn't offer a simple prayer and send her on her way. Instead, he asks a very practical, very personal question. He says, how can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? Think about that. He's shifting her focus from what she's about to lose her sons to what she already possesses, from the overwhelming lack to the small seed of a solution. This is such a crucial principle. Often, when we're in a crisis, all we can see is the giant problem in front of us. Our vision is consumed by the debt, the diagnosis, the broken relationship. But God, through Elisha, invites us to look again, to look inside our own house, our own lives, and find what we do have. No matter how small it seems, the widow's reply is almost heartbreaking. She says, your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil. She practically dismisses it. Nothing, except this, to her. It's insignificant. A little bit of oil for cooking, maybe for a lamp. It's next to nothing when compared to the mountain of debt she's facing. But for God, that except is everything. That small, seemingly insignificant thing is the very seed he is going to use for her miracle. He doesn't need us to have it all together. He just needs our except. He needs our 5 loaves and 2 fish. He needs our single jar of oil. He is the master of taking our little and making it more than enough. So, with this tiny bit of information, Elisha gives her a very strange set of instructions. He tells her, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. This was a step of faith. Can you imagine her going door to door? Hi, can I borrow your empty pots? All of them. No, I don't have anything to put in them. I'm just collecting them. It must have felt foolish. It required humility, and it required her to act on a promise she hadn't seen yet. But faith isn't about feeling comfortable. It's about obedience. Even when the instruction seems illogical, she had to act like the provision was already there before she saw a single drop of new oil. And then comes the next part of the instruction, which is just as important. Elisha says, then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil from your jar into all the other jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. Why shut the door? This wasn't for a magic show. The miracle was to be a private, intimate affair between this family and God. Shutting the door was an act of separating themselves from the world's doubt and scrutiny. It was about creating a sacred space where their faith could operate without distraction or disbelief. Sometimes the most profound work God does in our lives happens behind closed doors, away from the public eye. It's in the quiet place where we shut out the noise and focus only on Him and the instruction He's given us. Now, picture the scene. The widow and her 2 boys are in their small home, surrounded by a mountain of empty jars. She takes her one small pot of oil, the one she said was all she had, and she begins to pour. And as she pours into the first empty jar, the oil doesn't run out. It keeps flowing. She fills the first jar to the brim. Her sons hand her another. She fills that one too, and another, and another.
The oil from her tiny pot just keeps coming.
This isn't just a multiplication, it's a creative miracle.
Oil is appearing from a source that should have been empty long ago. It's flowing supernaturally, defying all logic.
The text says she kept pouring as her sons brought the jars to her.
This was a team effort.
The boys, who were the very ones in danger, became active participants in their own rescue. Their hands were a part of the miracle.
They were witnessing firsthand that God was their true provider, not some creditor.
And the oil keeps flowing until a critical moment.
The widow says, "Bring me another one." But one of her sons replies, "There isn't a jar left," and the Bible says, "Then the oil stopped flowing." This is probably the most profound lesson in the entire story. The miracle didn't stop because God ran out of oil.
God has an infinite supply.
The miracle stopped when the widow ran out of empty vessels. The provision was limited only by her capacity to receive it. The number of jars she collected, the amount of faith she exercised by going to her neighbors, determined the scale of her blessing. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if she had collected more jars? What if she had gone to the next village? God's ability to provide for us is limitless, but often our readiness to receive it is not.
How much space are we creating for God to work? How many empty jars are we bringing to Him in faith, expecting Him to fill them? So, with a house full of valuable olive oil, the widow goes back to Elisha. She doesn't just assume what to do next.
She seeks wisdom.
And Elisha gives her the final piece of the puzzle. Go, sell the oil and pay your debts.
You and your sons can live on the rest. Notice the order. First, pay the debt. God's provision wasn't just to make her rich.
It was to bring her freedom and restore her integrity.
He is a God of order.
He dealt with the immediate crisis first, but look at the sheer abundance of His provision.
It wasn't just enough to pay the debt. It was more than enough. There was a surplus for her and her sons to live on. This is the nature of our God.
He doesn't just meet our needs.
He provides abundantly, above and beyond all we can ask or imagine.
This story is so much more than a historical account. It's a living blueprint for faith.
It teaches us that when we face impossible situations, we should first cry out to God. Then, we need to look at what we already have, no matter how small.
Our nothing except is God's starting point. We must then take steps of obedient faith, even if they feel foolish, like collecting empty jars.
We need to shut the door on doubt and create a space for God to work privately and powerfully in our lives.
And finally, we must realize that the size of our miracle is often determined by the capacity of our faith.
So what's your nothing? Except, what's the little jar of oil in your life that you've been dismissing? Maybe it's a talent, a small amount of money, a relationship, an idea.
Today, I want to encourage you to see it differently.
See it as the seed for your miracle.
Bring your empty jars to God, your needs, your worries, your hopes,
and expectantly watch what He will do.
He is the God who fills empty vessels, pays of every debt, and provides more than enough for the journey ahead.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this story has encouraged you. If it has, please give this video a like and consider subscribing for more content that dives deep into the powerful truths of the Bible. Let me know in the comments what stood out to you the most. God bless you, and I see you in the next video.